live for another episode of the Tennis Galaxy podcast. I'm your host Prasad, and joining me are the two analysts Raj K and Prakash. It's 9 a.m. in Mumbai, and which means it's a Saturday night in the US. How are you guys doing, Raj K? Let's start with you first.
I'm doing fine. Happy
And
to see the Wimbledon draws out.
finally, isn't it, Prakash? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you, Prasad?
Excellent. Recording on a Sunday morning at 9 gives me more time to get the connection right and stuff. So, all excited for today's episode, guys, because it's time for Wimbledon, and we are just one day away from the biggest slam in history. And we've got a lot to talk about, starting with the seeding system, which has come into question in the past few weeks because of certain events that have taken place. And let's go straight to Raj K. And Raj K, can you take our listeners through the seeding system at Wimbledon, which is traditional since 2002?
So, the seeding system at Wimbledon, unlike the other Grand Slams, also takes into account the surface specific points. So, what they do is they take your ATP points and then add 100% of the grass court points in the last 12 years, last 12
Hmm.
months, it's last
Hmm.
1 year, and then 75% of the grass court points in the previous 1 year. That is from 12 months before to 24 months before. And that's only for the best grass court tournament. So you don't add the all the grass court points, but 75% of the best grass court tournament. So basically, ATP points plus all grass court points in the last 1 year, plus 75% of the best grass court tournament in the 1 year before that.
That's the system now, and that has that affected a few players. Prakash, there seems to be a fuss throughout the week. Players voicing their opinions. Has that affected and has that offended a few players?
So, yeah, the thing is, the biggest talking point, of course, and this has been going on actually since the French Open, really, people were talking about this,
Hmm.
that once Federer got to semifinals, that there was a chance that in spite of Nadal winning the French Open, if Federer wins Hala, that he's going to be seeded ahead
Hmm.
of Nadal. So, and so the few points here. So first thing is that itself should tell us that this system has been in place. So people know it well ahead. It's not something that sprung up like yesterday.
Yeah,
So it has
correct.
been there, and it's been being implemented over the last 17 years since 2002. Because before that there used to be a seeding committee, and they used to sometimes and right now the seeding committee does it. I think even for the women's, so they generally follow the rankings. But whenever they think there's an exception, the seeding committee makes their own call, and they used to do that up until 2002 on the men's side too. But obviously, they wanted to make it objective,
Yeah.
and of course, they introduced this formula, and being implemented. And so the thing is, right now we have had a lot of reactions, and there have been quite a few supporters, I think, say of uh, not supporters. I would say people who want the seating system to be ended, because they think right now all the surfaces are more or less playing the same. Yeah. So, but my point. So, these people include Brad Gilbert and Darren Cahill. Some of the big analysts and well-known coaches in the tennis world.
Hmm.
So, and of course, Nadal's camp has not been happy because
Hmm.
Federer has moved into second position ahead of Nadal. But one or not one, I have quite a few points to make. Let's start with the first one I want to make is that, in a way, right, the issue is more only about Nadal, but people forget that Kevin Anderson has been bumped to four, you know, but no one's talking about that. So it's like this has been a problem with tennis. I think you're only concerned about the top two or three players. That's it. So if the top three held their things, we wouldn't
Hmm.
be having the discussion. This
Absolutely.
discussion is entirely because only that Nadal has been moved out of the second position. And my
And
personal take,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Let's go with your personal take there.
So my personal take is that still, like okay, I mean, I get the point that Darren Cahill and even Brad Gilbert have been making that that right now it's all mostly similar. The surfaces, grass is not that much different. But where I would like to disagree is that okay, if all the surfaces are similar, then let's have three masters on grass. On the tour, right? Let's have all the surfaces represented equally. Then let's have
Hmm.
maybe three masters indoors, or if you want 8 masters a year, because Monte Carlo is not mandatory, and that needs to be another. That's another issue completely. That
Correct.
that there has to be a non-mandatory 1,000 point event. The ATP will have to somehow deal with that first. That doesn't seem right in one sense. But anyway, that's a discussion for another day. So if you want everything to be the same, then I would say bring in like two outdoor masters, two clay court masters, two grass masters, and two indoor masters. You know, so that way it's everything is going to be equal, and then you can say we'll use the same ranking throughout the year. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, right now the situation is that grass courts, right? There is no masters.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
is just so you. I think for me, I think they should still stick with the seeding system. And I know it's unfortunate that Nadal has not got the second seed, but I would say I would say actually other even like U.S. Open and Australian Open, right? Should implement this kind of a seeding system,
Hmm.
because my gripe has always been that sometimes, right, the best two hardcore players have actually met in the semi-final instead of them actually meeting in the final.
Hmm.
I'll give you a prime example, and that's if you look at the 2010 and 2011 and 2013 US Opens, and a bunch of even maybe the Australian Opens around that time, uh, Federer was number one, and he was probably the best hardcore player at that time, and Djokovic was showing, putting up pretty good hardcore results. But they kept ending up meeting many times in the semifinals instead of actually meeting in the finals. And I don't think that's the right thing. If they had this kind of seeding system, most probably you would have avoided those kind of things. So I think the problem is not as simple as, you know, now the Surface are playing well and let's just remove the seeding system.
Hmm.
And and if you want, you have to look at the like you see players like Dustin Brown, Lucas Russell, Steve Darcis, these guys beating Nadal on grass, and you understand why it's a different surface.
Hmm.
Those kind of things don't happen. No? Dustin Brown is a very big example. You only
Absolutely.
get to see him do so well on grass. So that's my point. I think so. Nadal is upset, and I think Djokovic too kind of appear neutral on that. But we will see what happens going forward.
Yeah.
But for now, I think I'm okay with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, very well explained about the seeding first that's going on, and everything that going on. Nadal quick to object. And before we go any further, and we have Rajkesh take on this, let me read out what Rafa Nadal said when he was asked about this. There are articles on internet that say the grapes are sour, but let's see what Rafael Nadal had to say. Rafael Nadal says, no, no, I respect all situations. The stuff is about ATP. ATP, we give 2,000 points to this event. We let them to do whatever they want. That's because that I don't understand, because I can't create an impact, not myself. I really come here to play tennis. For me, the goal is same always. It doesn't matter if I'm second or third. Of course, can create an impact if the ranking at the end of the year, for example, for Sasha or for Dominic, you know. So then he goes on to say it's not only about grass. The season is not only on grass. All players work so hard to be where they are, then arrive here. They see a possibility to be in a tougher draw because of that. Talking about if it is fair or not, I respect the Wimbledon rules. Another thing is if I believe that is fair or not, that's another story. I personally believe is not. hold on to your horses. Here you go. The next comment. But I really respect the tournament so much. I really respect the history of this event. I really understand that they see the sport from another perspective. They want to do it by their own rules. Another thing is we are an organization like ATP that I repeat, we give 2000 points to this event. We are supposed to have something to say about this Wimbledon rules when we are giving the maximum possible points. Rajke, you heard his statement and you've heard the seeding first throughout the week. What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, I heard the statement. I'm not sure I completely understand it. It seems a bit all over the place to me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether he's supporting this or opposing it.
No, he is diplomatically opposing, as the statement says. He says, "I respect the decisions," and but he is clearly there to mention that they Wimbledon ATP is doing something on their very own. Yeah, they are implementing rules on their own in at the Wimbledon, and he then goes on to talk about the points that are offered at the event.
Yeah, so I think this whole thing starts probably, as Prakash said, because grass doesn't have enough tournaments on it. So the ATP feels that, or the Wimbledon feels that the seeding is not representative, right? I mean, like clay has so many tournaments. So what can you do then? You have to go
Yeah.
back in the previous year and then
He-
add tournaments which just increase the representation of grass tournaments, and
Hmm,
they
hmm.
are completely within their right to do that, and players know this before the event starts. It's not a rule which was changed recently. So I mean, they have every right to do that. Now the question is, if we had a chance to formulate the policy, would we have done something different?
Hmm.
I don't think so. I mean, given the fact that there are so few tournaments, I think it's completely fine. And regarding what the two guys, Brad Gilbert, and who was the other person, Dan Cahill. So what they had to say, I mean, their point is that the surfaces are similar, so you don't need to add the points from the grass, right? I mean, well, I don't think that makes much of sense, because after adding the points, clearly there have been a difference in the seedings. If the surfaces are so similar, we would not have noticed any changes, right? But we have seen so many changes, which clearly means that they're not. Adding the points does make a difference. So
Correct, correct.
I don't understand.
And Prakash rightly pointed out that Kevin Anderson has been seeded fourth. I know it's always about the top three. If the top three, if it was Nadal two and Federer three, we wouldn't even be talking about this.
Yeah. So, well,
So
my reply was about the principle of it without, any reference to the players involved. But I understand that the media probably wouldn't have talked about this if Nadal were not involved.
So Rajke, Djokovic is the number one seed going in, and the question still sticks to is to you, Prakash.
Mhm.
Be here because we are going to discuss the potential draws soon. Rajke,
Yeah.
Djokovic has a very diplomatic take, isn't it, on the whole seeding issue? What did you make of his statement?
Yeah, I mean, Djokovic, to me, it looked like he was supporting both people, which is normally fine. But in this case, perhaps, I like people who take perhaps a more clearer stance.
Yeah.
So I don't know. He says that, this is like Federer is the greatest player of all time, blah, blah, blah. But that doesn't matter. I mean, Federer may be the greatest player of all time, but that's not the reason why he's seeded number two. It's because he's performed well on grass, right?
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
say he had not won Wimbledon in 2017, he wouldn't be seeded number two. He would still probably be the greatest player on grass. So I think he's mixing up various things there.
Oh yeah.
And then he also says after that but the player in consideration is Nadal. Now nobody is bigger than the game, right? I mean, these are all legends, but the way Djokovic talks about it, it's almost as if this rule, you should. It's okay that this rule is applied because it benefited Roger, but it's also not okay because it hurt Nadal. You know what? It doesn't matter who it benefited. The rule is the rule, and we are here to talk about the rule, not the player that it benefits. And so I didn't quite like the way he said that, to be perfectly honest, even though I'm a Djokovic fan.
Excellent point there. The game is bigger than anyone, any player, and we are
Absolutely.
here to talk
Absolutely.
about the rules. And
Yes.
I know all of us are excited because we've been waiting for this day. We are one day away from the Wimbledon. Prakash, are you here? And
Yes, sir.
we are going to the draws now, the potential draws.
Now,
which and
Prasad,
it,
just
it
before we go there, right? There's
yeah,
another point I want to make on this thing, right? So
correct.
the
Go
little
on.
irony here that Nadal is not happy with the formula. He's a big
Hmm.
supporter of the two-year ranking system, right?
Yeah.
And to some extent, this is what Wimbledon does is basically go, an extra year back, right?
Hmm.
So
Actually,
I mean, yeah,
two
there is
extra years back, 2 years back,
Hmm.
no, yeah,
right?
no, yeah, that's what.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically using, of course, it's giving double the weightage to the last 1 year, but
Yeah.
because it adds it again. But I mean,
Yeah. Exactly.
essentially, right? It's to some
Mm.
extent it is similar to the two-year ranking he has
Yeah. Yeah.
always
Yeah.
wanted, right?
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah.
then
Exactly.
he doesn't seem to be liking it when it is actually being implemented by one of the tournaments. So I find that pretty kind of, you know, doesn't to me logically they are the same. They're similar, and I don't think he
But
would like the 2 year. Yeah,
But I do agree with you, Prakash, that either like if Wimbledon does this, maybe the other Grand Slams should do it as well.
Hmm.
And maybe Nadal
right,
is making that point, but and of course he's that's a very fair point. But the irony of the thing
right.
is, if they do that, probably the person who is going to be hurt the most is Rafa Nadal because it's going to hurt him in Australian Open and US Open, right? Where the
Hmm.
hardcore
Very
points are
likely.
going to be more for other hardcore players. And it's
Yeah.
not going to
Right.
help him at French Open because he's winning it anyway. So, I mean, it can't be a better outcome. So it can only hurt him. So
So
it's a bit
on what
surprising.
yeah, so on what Prakash said, I we let the listeners decide, and the question to them is: Are the grapes sour here? Are the grapes sour? That's the question. That's you decide that. Whoever's listening to this podcast, we have to move on with the draws. Hello, yeah, we have to
Yes.
move on with the draws, Prakash, and let's go on to you now. Let's take a look at Federer's potential draws in the Wimbledon, starting with round one and so on.
Okay. Yeah. So Federer, I think, has got a very workable draw here. I think, and the first week he should be okay, And given that he's won Hala, I was not very happy with his form, even though he won Hala.
Hmm.
But I think hopefully this 1 week has given him more time to, get used to the grass. And yeah, I think he should have a relatively easy first week. And but the fourth round onwards, things start getting interesting. And Chorich was the guy first I saw there, but he has withdrawn, and now Berrettini has taken his place.
Yeah.
And I actually think Berrettini has won Stuttgart, I think, and he's made the semis at Hala. He's a very exciting young player from
Hmm.
Italy, and it could be very interesting if he plays the Federer on the Manic Monday. That's the biggest day in tennis. The second Monday at Wimbledon.
Hmm.
That'll be interesting. And then, of course, in the quarterfinals, I think he's drawn to meet Isner. Again, Isner, his season has been up and down, but he did make the Miami final. And
Hmm.
Prakash,
I,
just a correction. In the
yeah.
quarterfinals, he's drawn to meet Nishikori, but of course, ranking wise, because seeding wise, Nishikori is
Oh, yeah.
8 and Isner is 9. Yeah.
Right. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Nishikori isn't there. I'm sorry. But yeah, I think, yeah, Isner is the one I looked at as more threat. But yeah, definitely,
Yeah, but just because you said drawn to meet, of course, it's more likely perhaps that Isner
right.
is.
Right. Yeah.
But
Actually, yeah,
yeah.
he's drawn to meet Nishikori there. It was the eighth seed. And also, actually, in that group, right, in Nishikori's quarter, is this guy Taylor Fritz who just won a tournament today. So I'm thinking, one of these Americans, Taylor Fritz or John Isner, could actually end up getting to the quarterfinal. Uh, no, I mean Nishikori, of course, was there in the quarterfinals last year, losing to Djokovic. I think so. Uh, so I think that's the quarterfinal again. Federer should still make it with even given these players. And though against Fritz, he had like a very interesting match last year or the year before,
Yeah.
and either most likely in Stuttgart, I think. So it'll be interesting if he gets to play Fritz. And but the real thing is, of course, that Nadal is the guy who's been drawn to meet him in the semifinals.
Yeah.
And despite all the controversy about the seeding system, right? this is how it should be. Like, the two should play three, in my opinion. And tennis should generally be tennis draw. They draw, and a lot of times the number one player ends up playing the number three player. But I think two and three make sense to me. And so even though the seeding system is not, there's some controversy right now. I think it's worked out eventually the right way that Federer and Nadal are going to
Yeah,
hopefully,
are in the same half.
play
And
out in
Prakash, we were talking about this before the draws came out, isn't it? All the seeding fuss, and then it would be back to square one if Federer and Nadal landed in the same half. So Nadal,
Exactly.
yeah, and Nadal once again now has to go through um, Federer in the semi-final and Djokovic in the final. Potentially, we are talking about the potential draws here because
Right.
you can't expect anything. Anyone can go out. It's that kind of a tournament. It's the grass tournament.
Yeah.
We're going to go
Yeah.
to the number one players draws here, and we're going to go to Rajke now for the potential draws that Djokovic has in the Wimbledon 2019.
Okay, he's got a tough opener against Kohlschreiber. Kohlschreiber
Oh,
beat him earlier this year in hardcourt Masters. I think it was Indian Wells. Um, was it Indian Wells or Miami, Prakash? Do you remember? Kohlschreiber beating
What's that?
Djokovic? Kohlschreiber beat Djokovic in Indian Wells, right? Not Miami.
Yeah. I
I think
think
it was
yes, it was
Indian Wells.
in,
But
yes.
anyway, so it was hardcourt, and then Djokovic beat Kohlschreiber on clay. And the last set of that was like quite an easy win for Djokovic. This was in Rome.
hmm.
So he did get his revenge, so to say, but that was on clay. And now they're playing on the third different surface, so it's grass. And Kohlschreiber is a very good grass court player. So that's a pretty tough first round match to get.
Hmm.
But after that, I think it becomes easier for Djokovic. Second round is going to be against Kudla or Jaziri, which should not be a problem. And in the third round, he's drawn to meet one of Gulbis, Meyer, Hurkacz, Lajovic.
Hmm.
Tough players, but not very threatening to Djokovic. After that, probably Felix or Dimitrov, which again could be a bit difficult. That's fourth round we are talking about.
And
And then in the fifth round, who is he going to play? Tsitsipas. Okay, so from there here onwards, it does get a bit difficult. So the first four rounds are easy, but the last three rounds, again, comparatively easy. This is all comparative. Last three rounds could be something like Tsitsipas,
yeah.
Anderson or Zverev, and Federer. That
Hmm.
is pretty difficult. So overall, I'd say this is marginally more tougher than Federer's draw,
Yeah.
but it's not really. It's not the worst draw you can get.
But to be the best, you got to beat the best, and in a Grand Slam, anything can happen. These and especially the grass tournaments are the evidence from the past that any player can take out anyone on a given day, and it's
That's
that
true. Like
kind of a
Kevin
tournament.
Anderson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kevin Anderson, if he just starts serving very well, it's going to be really difficult. And
Absolutely.
even last year, in the final, Djokovic Anderson final, Anderson played that very epic match with Isner
Yeah.
and was very tired. And even then, he did push Djokovic towards the end, right? So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who turns up to play Djokovic in the semifinal if he gets there.
Prakash, Raffens are listening to this as well, and we've spoken about the number one seed and the number two seed, and we now have to speak about the number three seed, which is Rafa Nadal, and his draws. So, what are his draws according to the things that came out? What do Nadal's draws look like?
So Nadal has got a very tricky draw, and well, to some extent, I would say personally, right, on grass, given Nadal's record the last 5-6 years on at Wimbledon and in general on grass, I think most draws are going to look tricky because Nadal has had he's been beaten by Steve Darcis,
Hmm.
Lucas Rosol,
Hmm.
Dustin Brown,
Hmm.
Nick Kyrgios when he was his outside top. I think Kyrgios was 100 something ranked
Yeah.
that
And
time,
19
and he
years
beat him
old.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 19-year-old. And so to some extent, I would say like the draws looking tricky is because the Nadal's most recent form on grass, the last 5-6 years,
Also, Gilles
that's
Muller,
not
by
been
the way.
very good. Gilles Muller, yes. So, having said that, right? So he opens against Yuchi Sugita of Japan. Interestingly, I think Sugita beat Rosol in the qualifiers. So this is yeah.
I know where
I
you're
mean
going
that would
from
have
here.
been interesting. That would have
Yeah.
been interesting if Rosol actually got there, and it was Rosol and Nadal, and then Kyrgios in the waiting him in the second, or potentially drawn to meet him in the second. I think the conspiracy theories would have been like full tilt, and I mean tennis Twitter would have gone bonkers. I think that would have been something, but not to happen. So Rosol lost to Sugita, so we get then. So yeah, so now that would be great if we can get a Kyrgios Nadal second round match, given all the friction that's been happening between Kyrgios and Nadal fans, Djokovic fans. And Kyrgios has been talking a lot, which he always does, and he's I think stepped it up even. What do you say? This has gone to like I think McEnroe and Nastase and Connors level talk. That he's been doing about this guy. So we will see. But yeah, Kyrgios, there are no guarantees. He's playing Jordan Thompson,
Yeah,
who
yeah.
is now he's pretty consistent, and I think he does all the things everyone expects Nick Kyrgios or wants Nick Kyrgios to be doing. Is professional, and turns up on for things on time. And puts in the hours and stuff. So I mean, it'll be great if we get that. And give
So,
now the
hmm.
third round. Nadal has got either Songa or Shapovalov, which
Oh
is
my
again
God.
going to be
Correct.
Tomic is another guy I see there in the draw. So I mean, any of those three guys, most likely I think Songa is going to come out of there. But even assuming that if Shapovalov comes there, that's going to be a blockbuster third rounder. And fourth round, I think Cilic is a guy who's been drawn to meet Nadal.
Yep.
And yeah, Cilic. I'm thinking Cilic will make it through from there, but if Manarino uh, or say maybe James Ward or Daniel Evans, who are like the local player, Basilashvili is there too. So yeah, who's like a big striker of the ball, right? So Nadal's
So,
draw is like, and then in the quarterfinals, of course, he's got I think TM is drawn to meet him in the quarterfinals, which in a way he caught the break there, no, instead of getting either like Tsitsipas or someone like that. And but I think Thiem's quarter, uh, Simon's there. Simon's made the final at Queens. Uh, I can't really pick. Query is there who made the final today. I think it is Bone.
hmm.
So yeah, I would like to think Query will make it to the quarterfinal there, but I'm hoping maybe like no Thiem will finally find his game on grass and maybe like at Indian Wells, right? I think Thiem will find out like he's playing with like kind of house money because no one really now expects him to play. Not no one expects him, but I think given his record of clay, TM has got nothing to lose. So if he plays like he played at last year US Open or this year's Indian Wells, I think maybe TM will be the one making the quarterfinals there.
So we
So
are,
all in all, I
we,
think
yeah. So
pretty tough
all in
one.
all, yeah, a very tough, tricky draw. If I'm listening to that, I'm
Right.
evaluating the chances and seeing Rajkesh smirk every now and then. He's
No, it's
sensing.
crazy. It's really crazy. It's one of the toughest draws I've seen, man. I mean, this is
Yeah.
ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So let's review the draw. It's Kyrgios, and then second round. Sorry, it's Sugita,
Yeah.
Kyrgios,
Yeah.
Songa, and then Cilic,
Chile.
TM,
Chile?
Federer, Djokovic. I mean, if he goes through all these guys and wins it, hats off to him. It's one of the greatest, Wimbledon victories of Rafael
Achievement.
Nadal.
True. But again, as draws tend to, right, it might open up. We'll see. But if it plays to the,
Hmm.
draw, yeah, that's one
No,
heck of
just
a
think
draw.
about this. If these draws hold, right, just in the
Yeah,
semi-final and final, he's going to have to
yeah.
beat Federer, who won 8 Wimbledons, and Djokovic, who won 4 Wimbledons. So in the
Four.
semi-final and final, he's going to have to beat players who have 12 12 Wimbledon trophies between them. I don't
In the
think
past,
that's ever
in the
happened
past,
before.
yeah, in the past 16 years, but to be honest, yeah, great. Well, crazy draw, and
I mean, it's completely crazy draw, really.
so great show there, guys, on the draws and the seeding first. I'm
One more
sure.
point, Prasad.
Yeah.
Just want to
Go.
make. I think we had a similar discussion about Djokovic's draw at French Open, which looked ridiculous if you remember,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But you then remember how it opened up, and in fact, I think he ended up having, in a way, kind of much or more or less, no, the same kind of draw as the others. So,
That's
but I
true.
think I don't see that happening here so much, but we'll see.
Plus,
But
so remember, in the end, Djokovic did have to play, like would have had to
oh
play
yeah, and
TM and
it did
Nadal.
cost him
So,
finally. Yeah,
yeah.
Zverev and
So,
TM
I
back
mean,
to back.
like, even if
Yeah,
everything
it has
works out, if Nadal just has to beat Federer and Djokovic, that's going to be tough, right? Back to back. So,
tough to yeah.
And
Yes.
the so a great discussion there, guys, and that's the so let's carry on with what we did at the French Open, and let's predict. Let's have our predictions for the top 3 or 4 players as to where they will reach. Will or just have, let's say, have a quick prediction for the top three.
uh, so top three. Okay, so Djokovic is going to win here. Federer probably reaches the semifinal or the final. Nadal, I think, probably, I'd say the fourth round or the quarterfinal.
Boom. Prakash, if you're listening,
Yeah.
and some
Yes.
very very good digging up that you do on your Twitter account, and
Yeah.
first let's get your prediction on the top three, and then let's go on to some stats, and let's wrap this up with our
So
viewers.
yeah,
Hmm.
I think I would go with Djokovic winning these two. His draw is, and I mean it helps, right, to have a good draw, and he's got that. Uh, Federer, I think I will take him to the final. I think he's going to make it to the final, and as said, right, I always prefer. I think Federer needs to play Djokovic in a semi-final, and to kind of banish all the final demons he's been having. I mean
Hmm.
that's like he got over the Nadal hurdle to some extent at 2017 Australian Open, and but unfortunately did not get a chance to meet Djokovic for the next 2 years at a
Yeah.
Grand Slam.
Yeah.
Um, you know, so let's
2000.
see.
Yeah. 2014, 15 still haunts, isn't it? The final. 2014,
Right.
15.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
hopefully, yeah, it's going to be a tough ask if Nadal, and especially if he has to beat Nadal in the semifinals to get to that final.
Yeah.
So yeah, so those two guys I picked to the final. Nadal, yeah, I can't see him. Yeah, I think fourth round, yeah, is what I would stick. Fourth round. I would like to always with Nadal. I think it's a tournament, especially at Wimbledon. It's always a tournament of like two tournaments he's playing. So the
Hmm.
first week is in a tournament in itself, and then we have to reevaluate his chances.
In the second.
So
Yeah.
yeah, in the second week, and
Yeah.
generally when he gets to the first week is when he's primed to do damage in the second week. So yeah, I think we'll check again next week. But I think fourth round is for now where I see him. And
So
yeah, but
yeah, great,
if he wins that fourth
great.
round match, right, then I think yeah, it could be the pressure on the semifinal would be on Federer, and that might help Nadal to some extent. Let's see. We will see next week
So
on that.
so if you guys are listening to this, and Roger Lever with Prakash, which is Roger Lever on Twitter at Donald Tendulkar. If you follow him, some interesting stats there, Prakash. And on Monday, which is tomorrow, Feliciano Lopez
Yeah.
will overtake Santoro for the most Grand Slam appearances. Let me give you all the numbers first. Federer 77, including this year's Wimbledon. Santoro has 70. That means Lopez moves on to 71.
Right.
Yeah. Quite interesting. And then we have most Grand Slam appearances at singles Grand Slam tournament. Connors 22 at the U.S. Open. Connors
Yes.
again 21 at Wimbledon. And that's most,
Though,
yeah, which is tied
though
by
Prashant, there's
Federer.
one of the regarding Connors 21 at Wimbledon, right?
Yeah.
So there is this. Uh, I mean, one of the he's a pretty good statistician himself on tennis Twitter. I think young tennis fans is the ID he posts with. He made a good point regarding that. Yeah, young tennis guns. That's the ID. He says that now we can count the 71 Wimbledon to Connors because he didn't play the first match there. So the ITF generally rates it as only 20 appearances for Connors at Wimbledon,
Hmm.
and so so by that count, yeah. But I think I mean 21 is what I got from my source. But yeah, that's I just want to add that in. And Federer now is at 21 at Wimbledon. This is his 21st appearance.
Correct. Rajke, is Andy Murray back on in the singles, or is he still? And there are potential rumors of him pairing up with Serena Williams. That's just in the air, rumors in the air.
Yeah, I think it's going to take some time for Murray to come back, if it's ever going to happen. But I'm happy to see
Right.
him play the doubles.
Hmm.
And it's good that he won two Wimbledons anyway, So even if he doesn't get to play singles anymore, at least he fulfilled the great promise that he had, and for a British champion at Wimbledon, and that's wonderful that he did that when he had the chance.
And one more interesting stat, which we've already discussed in the past, which is the Wimbledon in the past 16 years has been won by the top four itself: Federer, Murray, Nadal, Djokovic, and eight for Federer, four for Djokovic, two for Nadal, and two for Murray. So this
Yeah.
is I think this is the only slam where the big four have been, you know, stamping their authority on it.
Hmm.
Unlike the other slams where you had a Stan Wawrinka win it or a Safin win it, or in the U.S. Open you can say a Juan Martin Del Potro, Cilic, or Roddick, for that sake. So all in all, a very good take on the Wimbledon thing. The draws, the seeding first, very well explained, and that's all from this episode of the Tennis Galaxy podcast.
Prashant, I got
Yeah.
one point. Given that it's a cricket World Cup here, right? So this is a pattern that's been following Wimbledon, right? So the last time there hasn't been a um what is it? Generally, there's been like since '96, right?
Yeah.
There have been like two players, it's the same player repeating at the next Cricket World Cup. So '96 was Sampras, and '99 again he won it. 2003 was
Hmm.
Federer, he won again in 2007. And then 2011, Djokovic won, and 2015 again he won. Now it's 2019. So if that pattern holds, we'll have some guy win this, who maybe we can look forward to win in 2023. So it'll be interesting. But
It's
yeah,
a crazy pattern.
Pattern again.
we will see if this pattern comes, and someone other than Nadal, sorry, not Nadal. Nadal be interesting if Nadal wins this, and it's like we can. I don't know if we can still expect him in 2023, but some young guy wins this, like Tsitsipas or Zverev or someone who I think is a dark horse for me now, and that'll be good. We
Exciting,
can,
interesting,
yeah.
and that's what you get on the Tennis Galaxy podcast. Good point there, Prakash. And
Mhm.
it's been a very good episode, guys, because we've already waited for the Wimbledon, and we've promised that we will be very consistent during the Wimbledon. So, looking forward to seeing you guys very soon on the next episode, and let's hope our predictions are come true. Because I'm very much excited about the pattern now, which I heard towards the end, and that brings us to the very end. We've discussed the seeding pattern. Rajke explained it very well. We've also gone over the fuss that's taken place. Again, Prakash doing a very good job there. And we've gone through the draws. Make sure to check them out. and then we've also gone on and given you some stats and a pattern that is got me all excited for this Wimbledon now. I already can't wait for 14th of July, which is going to be the biggest day in biggest day in the sport, one of the biggest day in sports history. We have the World Cup final, cricket World Cup final, the Wimbledon final to highlight because this is a tennis podcast, and we will also be having the British Grand Prix on the very same day, which is everything in London, everything in England. Sorry, going on. So the cricket World Cup will be starting at 3 p.m. Indian Standard Time, which means by the time Wimbledon starts, one of the innings will be over, and so the Wimbledon final and British Grand Prix start together on the same day, and then you have the second inning. So three things going on simultaneously when it's night. It's going to be fun, and so is this podcast, and we will be back for another episode of the Tennis Galaxy podcast. Here's your host Prasad signing out with Prakash and Raj K.
Bye.